it's not the significance of the obstacle that is the issue. It's the exercise of your faith. And faith isn't just for the large, eternal objects in your life, but faith is supposed to be part of your entire life.
Hey, I'm Phil, and I've spent most of my adult life as a full-time Christian minister. And in a world that often feels heavy with bad news, I've pulled together this collection of some of my more meaningful talks, recorded live over the years, and I hope that they bring you light. You'll find them here on my channel, Philuminated. So please, listen, like, subscribe, comment, share, and enjoy. This one is a little bit different. This is a sermon that I preached right after I came back from a 3-month sabbatical, the only sabbatical that I took in the nearly 30 years of ministry. I'd spent some time away reading, studying, praying, just sort of refreshing my soul. And when I returned, this was the first sermon that I preached. And so it's not that polished. You can hear me kind of wrestle with topics, but it's based on a passage that Jesus spoke that really challenged my faith. It's very simple, very straightforward, but it's a very honest look at the words of Jesus and what it means to live by faith. So I hope it lifts you up. I hope it encourages you, and thank you again for listening.
So today, for my message, I'm going to read to you a passage that I've been wrestling with, and it's not that polished, I'll be honest with you, and I'm still wrestling with it. But I'm going to kind of let you into the process of me wrestling with a passage, and it's on the topic of living out our faith. You know, we want to have faith, and having faith is good, but an important part of having faith is living faith. You know, it's not just an active theory that we're talking about, but it's about really living out our faith. And so the particular passage I want to read to you is from Mark chapter 11. I read this while I was reading through the Gospels, and this is something I really, even though I continued to read through the Gospels, I went back to this over and over, and I've really been kind of wrestling with this. It's not a new passage, of course, none of it is. It's something you've probably read before in your life, but it's something that I've really been wrestling with. Mark chapter 11. Beginning in verse 12. And again, this is on the topic of exercising our faith, kind of living out our faith. Mark chapter 11, verse 12. It says, "The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. And seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs." Verse 14. It says, "Then he said to the tree, 'May no one ever eat fruit from you again.' And the disciples heard him say it." Now you read on, a couple more things happen, other stuff's going on. But the next day, skip down to verse 20, "In the morning, as they went along, they saw the fig tree from the day before withered from its roots. Peter remembered and said to Jesus, 'Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered.' 'Have faith in God,' Jesus answered. 'Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, "Go, throw yourself into the sea," and does not doubt in their heart that what they say will happen, it will be done for them.'" All right, let's just pause right there for a minute. This is a very interesting interaction that Jesus is having with a tree that eventually leads to an interaction that he has with his followers and an opportunity to teach them about faith. And not just about theory of faith, but what faith in action looks like. What faith can do, the power of God that can be accessed through our faith. It's a very challenging scripture, so maybe you can understand why I have sort of been wrestling with it. Even though, again, I continued to read on and read through the Gospels, I really kept coming back to this concept. And so I've been wrestling with verse 23. I've really been wrestling with it, and I'm going to kind of let you in on some of the insights that I'm gaining, that I'm still wrestling with, and trying hard to put into practice in my life. So let's go back to verse 23. Jesus says there in Mark 11, verse 23, he says, "Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, 'Go, throw yourself into the sea,' and does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them." Amen. That's a pretty epic passage. And it hit me hard. Again, I've read this passage a million times, as probably you have as well. But it hit me hard this one particular time because the time that I read it, I happened to be sitting on a lake in the Adirondacks looking at a mountain. And so it wasn't the sea, right? But, it was a large body of water. I was out. The sun was coming up. I was praying. I was trying to get, spend time with God. And this just happened to be the next passage that I was reading. So I'm literally looking at a large body of water and a mountain. And here's Jesus saying that if anyone says to a mountain, "Go, throw yourself in the sea," and does not doubt in your heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. So I've got 3 points I'm going to pull out for you today. 3 things I want to share that I've been wrestling with and trying to put into practice, and maybe it will help you as well. I will warn you that each point gets progressively more difficult. All right? So we'll start with the easy ones first. And the reason why it's difficult, because this is a high calling from our leader. This passage, this verse, there's a lot more to it. There's a lot before it, there's a lot after it, there's plenty to study. But just look at this verse. It's a very high calling from our leader. Point number 1, about really putting your faith into practice from this verse is this. Very simply, speak. Just speak. Go back to the verse. Jesus says, "Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, 'Go, throw yourself into the sea,' and does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them." If anyone says to the mountain, what they say will happen. So very simply, a practical, right out of this verse is this. Speak. Speak. The directive by Jesus here is this: to speak to your obstacle. Speak to the mountain. Use words and issue an audible command to the mountain. That's the directive from Jesus. This may seem weird, but it's really something you see throughout the Bible. There's many examples of people using their words or speaking to do powerful things. Examples. Moses. Remember when he was leading the Israelites and they were thirsty and God was going to provide water for them. God told Moses to do what? Speak. There's a rock. That rock's going to provide water, which in and of itself is not the normal way that it works. But the way you're going to access the water, Moses, is you're going to speak to it. Now, unfortunately, Moses did not do what he was supposed to do. In fact, he struck the rock instead of speaking to it. And that caused a whole host of other problems that we won't get. But the command from the Lord was to speak. Speak to the object. Other examples. Again, the Bible's full of them. Ezekiel looked over a valley full of bones. And his directive from the Lord was to speak. To speak to those bones. He did, and amazing things happened. Jesus, an amazing example. Oftentimes, when healing people, he did it a lot of different ways, but one of the ways that he did it was he just spoke. In fact, somebody came to him one time and said, "You don't even have to come to the situation, Jesus. Just speak. Just say the word. Just, vibrate your vocal cords." and it will happen. And of course, the greatest example is God. The entire creation that we know happened by speaking. Speaking. It may seem on the, sort of up front, well, you want me to speak to a mountain? It may seem odd, but it's very much a way that God deals with obstacles in our lives. I tried this recently. I was going to Walmart. We were traveling. We were tired. We were looking for a particular item. We'd gone to a Walmart. We were out of town. We were trying to find it. They didn't have this. It was getting late. And we drove all the way to another Walmart looking for a particular thing. And as I got out of the car, I thought of this verse. And I said, okay, I'm gonna put this into practice. So as I'm walking into Walmart, I said out loud, not so loud because there are people around, but I said, I'm gonna say it. I said, Walmart, produce the item we are looking for. Supply us with the thing we want. I spoke to Walmart. And we went in, and wouldn't you know, that this Walmart had exactly what we were looking for. Okay, now, I can see, I can see it in your eyes. You're like, Phil, what are you talking about? First of all, why would you use the grand spiritual concepts of the Bible on something trivial like shopping at Walmart? Well, first of all, have you ever been to Walmart? Okay, number one, it's a pretty overwhelming place. But think about it for a second. What example is Jesus using to illustrate this spiritual point? His example was speak to this random mountain and toss it into this random ocean. What's the spiritual, eternal ramifications of that? What eternal problem does that solve? Maybe if you're a civil engineer and you're trying to, build a bridge, but what is the grand eternal plan of that? In fact, all of this is prompted from Jesus cursing a tree, right? What's the grand eternal plan there? There's a great verse actually in Luke chapter 17 where Jesus says something very similar about a mulberry tree. He says you can speak to a mulberry tree and tell it to be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it will obey you. Again, what is the grand eternal plan to move a tree out into the middle of the ocean? But these are the examples that Jesus used because the point is it's not the significance of the obstacle that is the issue. It's the exercise of your faith that is an important thing. And faith isn't just for the large, eternal objects in your life. It is for those things, but faith is supposed to be part of your entire life. Even when you're walking in the Walmart parking lot. I'll be honest with you. There are times when I pull into a busy parking lot and it's packed and I just go, God, would you grant me a spot way up front? And then I just drive up there and sure enough, someone's pulling out. And I'm always tempted to go, God, I know you don't really have time for this, but God's not bound by time. It's not like God's like, listen, I am so busy, but all right, let's get this guy a parking spot, Okay. I think that way, but that is not how God works. Again, the point is not the significance or lack of significance of the obstacle to which you are facing. The point is, are you going to face it with faith? Amen. And one of the directives, and this is why I've been wrestling with this, is to speak to your obstacle. So I'm going to encourage you to speak to your obstacles.
Amen.
Speak to your discouragement. Speak to your disappointments. Speak to your fears. Speak to your debt. Speak to your failures. Speak to your ailments. Speak to your injuries. Speak to your wounds. Speak to your anxieties. Speak to them and give them commands to throw themselves into the sea. That is living out your faith. This is right from our leader, man. I'm not making this stuff up. In fact, even this morning I was feeling anxious about this sermon because I haven't preached in a long time. And so I said to my sermon, I said, be well delivered, be spirit-led, and be helpful to those who hear it. Amen. And then I crossed my fingers and I hope it worked out. No, that's not what I did, because now that leads me to my second point. The second thing that Jesus says here is this: believe. Speak, he says, and he says then believe. You want to live by faith. I know we talk about faith, but you actually want to have faith. You believe. Say to the mountain, it says, go, throw yourself into the sea. It does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. So speak and then believe. Okay, I told you, it gets harder. These get harder. And the reason this one is actually a little bit harder than the first one is because you can't fake this. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. You cannot fake belief. I mean, you may be able to fool me, and I may be able to fool you. Yes. We may be able to put on a show externally. But Jesus cuts right through all that. He goes, no, you do not doubt in your heart. So he's talking about what you really feel and what really is inside. And this you can't fake. In fact, this may have been the point of the fig tree. Because here Jesus came up to a tree that had all its leaves, but it had no figs. And sometimes that's how our faith is. We may look faithful. We may have all our leaves, but when you go deep in there, there may be something missing. There may be something that's not really in our hearts. And so we speak, and then we believe. I really wrestle with this too. I really wrestle with this. How do you get yourself to really believe if you don't? If you have doubts, and I don't doubt God's ability, but I still have doubts at times. How do you really, in your heart, it is not a switch. You can't be just like, all right, oh, good, there we go. You know, it's your heart. It's not tangible. So how do you really change? I'm not 100% sure. But I do think it involves honesty. I think it involves honesty. I think it involves admitting that you don't really believe. I think that's part of it. Instead of, faking it, instead of willing yourself to it, instead of maybe hyping yourself, I think there's honesty that is needed. Honesty in order to battle this. There's a great example of this in Mark chapter 9. You remember this story? A man was having a problem with his son. His son was sick, and he went to Jesus for help. And Jesus said, everything is possible for one who believes. And the guy said, in verse 24 of Luke 9, he says, immediately the boy's father exclaimed, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. I love those. Those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the most amazing 8 words right there. I do believe, but I don't believe, right? I mean, help me. I mean, there's an honesty. Of course I believe, but I struggle because I don't believe. And so that's why I say, how do you get there? How do you get your heart, which is so not tangible and you can't grab it and you can't make it do stuff? How do you believe in your heart the way Jesus says? If you're not there, it begins with just being honest. When we went to Walmart, after I spoke to Walmart, we walked in and we went right to the area where the item should have been, and it wasn't there. And we were looking, and I was speaking. I was like, Walmart, you will provide. I'm trying to. And it wasn't there. It wasn't where it should be. And my daughter was with me, and she goes, you know what, I'm going to go look in a whole other section. I'll be back. I'll come find you. So she disappeared and went off. And so now I'm looking, and I'm walking, and I'm talking, and if you would have seen me, You're like, what is wrong with that man? Then I remembered this second part of this verse. It's not just speaking, but it's believing in your heart and not doubting. And I just tried to push myself. Of course I believe. I do believe. I believe. And then I finally just went, you know what? Maybe you would just count this one up as a fail, because you know what? It's like, God, I think I don't really believe. I don't really believe. It's a dumb little exercise. We're just looking for this item in this giant store. But I think I'm saying it, but I don't think I really believe it. And it was almost right at that moment of just like honesty with God. I wasn't trying to do anything. I was just genuinely surrendered and honest. It was almost right then that my daughter walked up and said, Dad, I found it. And here, I got a second one just in case. I'm like, oh my gosh. God, I was like, and then I'm walking around and like praising God in Walmart. So I'm just all over the place as I'm walking. I'm like, wow, God, that was amazing. Again, I'm letting you in. This is the thing I'm wrestling with. Like, what is the procedure? I like procedures. I like to know, do A, B, and C, and then God will have to do D. I like that. First of all, God doesn't have to do anything. But I am trying to wrestle with his word to figure out what he wants from me. And so this is what I wrestle with. So obviously, we've got to believe. But how do we deal with our hearts when we are having a hard time believing? Well, again, I think you just got to be honest. I think you got to, like this man in Mark 9, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. Speak, believe, and then finally, watch and wait. Speak to your obstacle. Believe what you've said. And then finally, watch and wait. Now, this part of the faith exercise is the hardest, in my opinion. I told you, they're getting progressively harder. This part is based not on what the Bible says, but actually on what the Bible doesn't say. Watching and waiting isn't in the passage I just read. But I'm saying that because of what the passage doesn't say. Jesus gives us an amazing promise. Speak and believe, and it will be done. That's the promise. But notice a glaring absence of something. How and when. Glaring absence. That's why I'm saying watch and wait. Do you see that? Jesus says, say to the mountain, throw yourself into the sea. And if you believe in your heart, it will be done. I think that we make assumptions with God's promises. We think, well, I spoke and then I believed, so why hasn't the mountain moved? And the assumption that we have is that because I did it, it's supposed to happen right now. But again, as I said, there is no reference to logistics and time in this. In fact, this is a theme that you see throughout the scriptures. This idea of God making promises without reference to time and logistics. Think about a couple examples. This is just a couple. Romans 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him. It's an amazing promise. In all things. That's a huge promise. In all things. That means everything. I got a flat tire on the way to church today. Yep, in that thing too. I don't have enough money to pay the rent. In that thing too. In all things, God works for the good of those who love him. Everything. But when? And how? Doesn't say. Matthew 11, verse 28. Jesus said, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Oh, what an amazing promise. But when? And exactly how? How do I get this? Doesn't say. Psalm 37, verse 4. This is a great one. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Amazing promise. But when? I'd kind of like those desires today. Can we schedule that for tomorrow, Lord? And exactly how? I know how I would like my desires to play out, but that might not be God's plan. But it seems like most of God's promises don't deal with time and logistics. Why? Well, I wonder if it's because those are two things that God is not limited by. We are. We're very much limited by logistics and time. But God isn't. It is not a limitation for God. Jesus, hey, we're having a party. We're completely out of wine. I guess we're just not going to have anything to drink. I got an idea. Why don't you just put some water in those pots and it'll turn into wine? Hey, Jesus, there's 5,000 people here that need food. And if we had a year's wages, it still wouldn't be enough for each of them to even have a crumb. You know what? Why don't you take those fish, a couple bread, we'll feed everybody. Full. They'll be full. Hey, Jesus, all your friends are on a boat out in the middle of the lake. Oh, there's a storm, and you're here on the shore, and there's no boats. I guess you're just going to have to wait till the next ferry comes along. No, you know what? I need to get my steps in anyway. I'll just walk. And so I wonder if the reason why many of God's promises, not all of them, there are some promises that have time and logistics attached to them, but many of them, the ones that we hold on to very dearly, don't have time and logistics, maybe because God is not limited by them. How will God do it? When will God do it? I don't know. But isn't that the point? You're going to have some faith. You're going to have some faith. It is amazing, though, to watch God work on his time and his way. I'll close out with this little story. When I was on sabbatical, I went down to visit my mom. My mom lives in Florida, and it was just me, not the whole family, but I just went down to spend a couple of days with her. She lives alone. She's 81 years old, and this particular visit was a little more difficult because I talked to my siblings, and I call it the sibling council, and we decided, we needed to get some things in place with my mom, talking about her future and where she's going to go. And my mom was very open to it and very receptive, and I was sort of the representative. So when I was there for this particular trip, Mom and I had to go to meet with a lawyer. We filled out some power of attorney paperwork. We made sure her will, everything was in line. And again, my mom was very open. It wasn't difficult logistically, but it was very difficult emotionally because you're having to talk about and think about things, future things I just don't want to think about, and I just don't want to. But we had to, and so it was a good trip, and it was great to see my mom. And then when I came back here, I had a layover in Charlotte, and so I was there for like an hour. I got off the plane, and I just sat down and I prayed, and I was like, God, I just feel terrible, and I don't know why, and I'm just kind of praying through it, and I realized as I was praying, I was like, God, I'm just sad. This whole conversation, this whole thing, I'm just sad. There's no way around it. There's no really cure for it. I'm just sad, and it's okay, and I'm sad. I mean, it's not okay, but I'm sad. And I'm grieving and just thinking about my mom's future. And then I got up and I had to go to the gate and catch my plane to Newark. And I don't know if you've ever traveled abroad and you go and you're at an airport and you're flying back to the New York area and you go to the gate and it was crowded and packed, and it's just full of New Yorkers, right? And they're just different. It's different than anybody. They're louder. They're more assertive. I mean, the airport can be calm, but then the group of New Yorkers sitting over there ready to go. And as I sat there, I couldn't help but to notice sitting on the floor was an older woman and a younger woman. And the older woman was weeping. I mean, she was weeping. And it wasn't just crying, it was weeping. And the younger woman was trying to console her. And I saw it from a distance, again, crowded area. I saw it, and I thought, she lost somebody. Like, I just related to that grief. That woman has lost somebody. That's the kind of tears it was. And so I just thought, I felt for her, but I waited. We got on the plane, and I was sitting in the back. I had the window seat. There was an empty middle seat, and then there was a guy in the aisle. And I'm sitting there. The flight attendant comes down, and she's asking people in the aisle seat if they'd be willing to move to allow two people to sit side by side and not split them up. And as they're getting closer, I realize the two people that she's trying to seat together are these two women that I saw. And I was a little resistant because I just didn't want that, to be honest. But the flight attendant came and asked the guy in the aisle seat. He got up, he said, no problem, and he left. And she sat the two women right next to me. And again, we're in a crowded airplane. We're in the back. Every seat is full. And I'm sitting right next to these two women. The younger woman's here, and the older woman is on the outside. And again, just weeping and weeping. And I sat there, and I heard them talking, and I just didn't know what to do. I thought, God, I'll wait and see how you tell me. What do I need to do? I don't want to insert myself. I don't know. And as the plane took off, and as they were, it really became uncomfortable because, when you're sitting close together, people kind of ignore themselves. It's hard to ignore somebody who's that grieved. So finally, I just, prompted by the Spirit, I just said to the young woman, I said, I am so sorry for your loss. And she just, you could see the relief. Because though they were hurting, I think they were very conscious of what was going on. And just having another person acknowledge it and connect, it just sort of gave them some protection. It wasn't my plan. I didn't know what, but I see it was amazing to watch how God worked. Turned out that the older woman just lost her daughter. And the other woman with her was her other daughter. So it was her sister. She's a married woman. She died. They were coming to New Jersey. And I said, I'm a minister. My wife and I live in New Jersey. Here's my number. If I can do anything, if you need anything, I will help you. And they were very grateful. Took my number. After the flight ended and they left, and I never heard from them again. I reached out to her at one point just to see, but they never got back to me. But I was amazed because I thought I was just praying about how grieved I was. And had I not been in that spot, I don't know that I would have been helpful to the people that were sitting right there. And I sat back in some sort of God way. I went, wow, that was God. That was God using my situation to help a complete stranger, at least to provide a little bit of comfort as they flew home to New Jersey. And so I'm just saying, when we watch and we wait and we let God do his work, it's so much more effective. It's so much more powerful than what we could have orchestrated. I don't know. Speak, believe, watch and wait. It's a very inspiring / challenging verse. If you have trouble with what I'm saying, go back to the master, because he's the one who said it. So I welcome you to wrestle with it as I have been. But not just to wrestle, but to really even begin to put it into practice. Let us not just be trees with leaves and no fruit. Let us be genuine. Let us have true faith, real faith. Let us live out our faith. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for listening, and I really hope that you have found some encouragement and some strength in this lesson today. Find more at Philuminated.com.